So the obvious place to start today, lads, is to pay tribute to Limerick. We're watching one of the greatest hurling teams that has ever played the game. I think that's gone beyond doubt now. It does help when the team they're playing, Paul, doesn't bother marking them in any way. It kind of lets them run around Croke Park. But we'll get to that in part two. But the comparisons are there, and we've been making the comparisons, and we're a bit slow to compare them to that great Kilkenny team. But I think we're entitled to now. A lot of people drawing a comparison to this performance to the 2008, the Kilkenny 3 in a row with that unbelievable team of theirs that almost did the 5 in a row. Limerick are very, very close to that level now.
Yeah, they are, absolutely. And there were so many indications that the similarities that were drawn between 2008 and yesterday. There were so many similarities. The fact that I think the biggest one was just the ease at which Limerick were operating yesterday. It was a different level altogether. And I think this is where the game has gone to now. In 10 years' time, we'll be looking back at this going, that was a turning point in hurling where every team now has to try and reach this point. And years ago, in 2008, look, I wasn't part of those Kilkenny teams. That's what we were talking about. It was how do every team reach this level? That's what we're saying with Limerick now, is how does every team step up to this level? So, yeah, look, Lord knows where this is going to go for their young team. Most of their players, I think, are around 24, 25. So there's a lot of open road ahead of these lads. But no, I think we really should enjoy it, acknowledge it, that this is nearly an evolution of hurling at this stage. This is where the game has gone. And look, enjoy it. They're just a joy to watch.
They are. They're absolutely fantastic. You mentioned the age. There's only Graham Mulcahy who's 31. He looks older than that. Nicky Quaid is 32. He probably doesn't. None of them are over 28. Garrod Hegarty, all their best players. Garrod Hegarty, 27. Tom Morrissey, Aaron Gallan, Sean Finn, Keane Lynch, 25. Seamus Flanagan, 24. Kyle Hayes is only 23, which is absolutely scary. Damien, you're looking at 318 and a half, 10 different scorers. It just doesn't get any better than what they produced yesterday, does it?
No, yesterday's performance, Colin, was just out of this world. So it wasn't the first 17 and a half minutes, Limerick just tore into a Cork team. So they did. And I think Cork were very naive in their tactics. I've said this before, I don't see any game being won in the first half, we'll say, especially in the first 17 and a half minutes and even the second quarter. But Limerick just showed their utter class, lads. They're an absolute class bunch of hurlers. Their power, their physique, their speed, their stick passing, they're all combined hurling was just phenomenal to watch. And lads, the one thing I couldn't get over, Everton is stick to hand. It's very few hand passes, that go on a distance. It's a stick pass to hand and it's delivered, and nearly a score comes off Everton. But Limerick were absolutely sensational yesterday. It was an unbelievable performance. And actually, it was a joy to watch the Limerick team in full flow. Everyone knew their job, knew their role, and there was scores coming from all angles. So it was very enjoyable in that regard.
Yeah. So Kieran Kingston said after the game, we know how good they are. They're unlucky not to have 4 All-Irelands in a row, and that's what we saw here today. They were unlucky not to have 4 All-Irelands. You suppose you have the deflected 65, Paul. Whether you want to admit it or not. There could be 4 in a row here.
Yeah, absolutely. There could be 4 in a row. And certainly, that day, and people keep referencing the semi-final back in 2019. Look that was probably a big learning curve from Limerick, from my point of view anyway, looking at them. That was more so not from a skill point of view, it was from the head's point of view, that we were probably not tipped going into that match. And that was a learning curve, I think, for Limerick, in that, don't write any team off and, just kill them off. If you're going to kill them off early on, get it done, but don't take a team for granted. They probably took us for granted that day, which I would say it's as much a skill as, as Damien saying, is getting the ball to hand or scoring points, or Keane Lynch doing his flicks into the hand. Having the head tuned that regardless who we're playing here today, go out and pearl your own game. Don't expect that you're going to go through third gear in this match. So a lot of people are referencing that match, but what I think it's a big learning curve, whatever about the hunger, it's just about the thing of it's an All-Ireland semi-final. You don't know what a team is going to bring. They could have 4, they don't have 4, but who's to say they won't have 4 or 5 now off the back of where they're going now? They still have plenty of time to do it. So we might be talking years to come. They could have had 8 in a row. We don't know.
We I think it was John Kiley referenced Caroline Courad's input on how to deal with the favourites tag. So maybe he was referencing back to then that they didn't deal with that too well. But this is a domination, Damien. This could get boring. We'll eulogise about Limerick this year because they're so brilliant. We could be 2 or 3 years down the line saying, geez, hurling's in a bad place. There's nobody challenging these lads. You look at last year's All-Ireland final, they won it by 11 points. Last year they hammered Clare, they hammered Tipperary. This year they've hammered Tipperary, they've hammered Waterford, they've hammered Cork. No one's laying a glove on them outside of Tipperary in that half, and they got their comeuppance when Limerick kind of turned it up in a second. Who can step up to challenge these lads?
Basically, Colin, what I have to say there is once in a lifetime you get a team like this. Like, and it's like the Kilkenny team, unbelievable team. I always refer to our Portumna club team, unbelievable team. You had the Tipperary Camogie team like this. Now you have the Limerick team. Once in your lifetime you'll get a bunch of players that are as good as they are and will drive on and are mad to win stuff and are mad for hunger. And you're on about the team. Basically, lads, there's lads chopping on the bit trying to get onto that team like this. And that's what's putting competition and lads performing because they're looking over their shoulders. Right? But I think we're looking at Colin, and I think you're right. We could be looking at a bit of a Dublin job here. Like, that they're just going to... I think they're going to take over. The only team that have players coming through the lines, in my opinion, is Cork. Like this, and Cork, like yesterday's defeat, could have caused a lot of damage on a psychological note like this. But Limerick are there; they're not going to go anywhere. They're a phenomenal team. Oh, the boys love hurling; they love winning stuff like this. And yeah, I can see Limerick going on for a couple more. They're not going to go anywhere for 10 years.
No, with that age profile and the Kilkenny comparison 2008. In 2008, Kilkenny won 3 in a row. They hammered Offaly, they hammered Wexford. They beat Cork by 9 points and they destroyed Waterford in the final. That's almost like this year for Limerick. That's the level. At least Tip came and stepped up and challenged Kilkenny.
Yeah.
We just don't know who's going to come up here. Like, you look at Declan Hannon went off. Straight away, young Coughlin comes on who's built like a rugby player and Kyle Hayes went centre back. What's the big odds here? Sure, aren't we grand?
Yeah, that's the strength and depth they have, and that's where the real danger lies, is that they do have the conveyor belt coming through. This is not a team, okay, it is a team that's been built up over the last few years, but it's not a team that's at the end of the road. And not only are they not at the end of the road, but they have young lads chomping at the bit looking to come in. We were looking at Coughlin there earlier on in the year. I think he was sitting his leaving cert in a few weeks and he was scoring 2 or 3 points in a game from left half back, 18 years of age, and like the size of him. I mean, he has a bit more growing to do as well, I'd imagine, So they do have the conveyor belt. People are talking of what other counties can challenge. I think we've seen over the last month or so that Cork do have the conveyor belt coming through, but never mind having the conveyor belt, it's having the attitude to challenge these fellas, that you're going to have the neck, first of all, to go out and say, okay, we're going to take these fellas on. But look at Limerick have the conveyor belt, they have the lads coming through. Other counties just again have to step up and say, right, we're going to have a crack at these lads, like Tip did, in Munster. Have a crack at these lads, or like Waterford did in the semi-final, but have a sustained attack and a sustained crack at them is the big challenge now.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing for me as a football man is the brains behind the whole operation. He's changed the whole tactics in Limerick hurling, and he's brought a lot of football in as far as I can see. A lot of their drills are actually football drills. When I see them in the warm-up before the match, a lot of the drills they do, they just replaced the short stick pass with a kick pass that I would have done a lot of them even in football. Yeah. It's mad, to watch it, but they're definitely influenced. But teams have tried everything on them, Damien. How many times have we thought...
The big thing is that a lot of teams have tried stuff, but not physically strong enough.
No. Well, here's the things... Here's the things we've discussed that teams have tried. They've tried holding their half-back line in position. Their half-forward line destroys you. They score 36 points. You've tried following the half-forward line. Their full-forward line destroys you. So now you try, maybe one holding back. Now Keane Lynch destroys you. Waterford tried to sew it into them. Sure, Limerick bloody loved it. And they came back and gave it to them even more. You've tried long puck-outs. Their half-back line will destroy you. You try short puck-outs. Their zonal pressing will destroy you. It's just going to have a team sit down. And sometimes, Damien, you can have to hold your hands up and say, tactically, you can try whatever you want, but the best team's going to win. They're just that far ahead of other teams.
Yeah, they're just, as I've spoken the whole time about their middle eight. You have Burns, Hannon, Kyle Hayes, Darragh O'Donovan, Willie O'Donoghue, Garrod Chegery, Keane Lynch, and Tom Morrissey. The 8 boys there they'll be fit to win any rugby team, especially club rugby. Like this, and they win all the breaking balls. They never stop working. And as you said, they've tried everything. But the one thing is, and you referred to it earlier in the show, Colin, was the Cork boys. I thought, anyways, watching it, they didn't mark their men tight enough in regard to stop them for scoring. And the big example is Garrod Chegery scored a goal. And if you watch it, and I really noticed it on the Sunday game, geez lads, he was inside and there was no one on him for 40 yards. Kyle Hayes rose the ball, turned, and he threw a hand pass over his shoulder. And Hegarty rose and went straight in and buried it to the bottom right. They weren't marking tight enough. So they are, but lads, Limerick are just a phenomenal team. I can't praise them enough. I can only imagine what it's like training them. I'd say the training sessions are so, A to B at pace, at strength. Lads are looking for what they call progression to do better. But it's just a phenomenal team. But no, the big thing is that opposition teams aren't strong enough in the middle eight to break them down.
No, they definitely don't. Look at it. We're going to go through the 3 Limerick goals because all 3 Limerick goals, we'll do it in part 2, were just shambolic defending, if we're being honest. And that has to be said. I want to talk about this Cian Lynch tackle, lads, because Cian Lynch has been lauded and we're going to talk about him and his contribution. Have to say, not being marked very tightly kind of, helped him an awful. Imagine not marking Cian Lynch. Jeez, it's just bizarre. I'm going to drop off Cian Lynch and my midfielder's not going to. We'll just leave. Do you know what we'll do? We'll just leave him around the 45 completely free. It's just bizarre. But anyways, he was having such a good game. This is a weird one. Usually you do this when you're frustrated or you're pissed off. Well, actually, what he did I've never seen on a GA field before in my life. So there's a bit of a carry on going on. Robert Downey flicks the hurl back at him, which seems to piss him off. And at the time when he got the clip on the leg with the hurl, Tim O'Mahony comes in and puts his hand kind of over his shoulder. Cian Lynch grabs his arm and flips him over like a judo move and dumps him down on his head, Paul. It's a straight red card all day long, surely.
It was a terrible tackle, and O'Mahony is lucky. I was looking at it going, geez, he's lucky he didn't break his neck there.
My God.
I think what was a tough one for the officials there is that we've never seen a tackle. I can't remember seeing a tackle like that in the pitch before, and you see it once. I watched it and I had to watch replays because when I saw it happen, I said, what happened there? Did they get tangled up? Did they fall over each other? But I think when you see it afterwards, it was a leveraging them over. Now, people have referenced rugby, saying if that was rugby, it would be a red card. It would, but you expect to see it in rugby.
There's precedent in rugby.
Where you're picked up and you're not holding the player as he goes to the ground. But Cian Lynch dumped him over. I don't think Cian Lynch expected him to land on his neck. He kind of wanted to throw him over. Nevertheless,
we don't
he
know.
landed.
A throw like that is,
it's
there's
dangerous.
a good chance of that happening.
And I think if we do have, if we did have the hindsight of looking at VAR or something, if the officials had that, he would have probably got a red card, because whether he meant it or not, it was dangerous and he could have caused serious harm. And look, it is something that they were ahead by a lot, okay, he got flicked back, but keep the head here, keep the head. For all the great things you're doing, don't let someone remember you for doing something like that. So again, probably another learning curve for him, but really probably should have been a red.
He came back then after that, he scored 2 or 3 of the best points you'll see. We'll talk about that afterwards. But he lay down then, Damien, on the ground, and he let on that he was hurt himself, a little bit like Peter Casey did the time with Gleeson, and we all agreed that there was very little in that, and we defended Peter Casey. It's very hard to defend this, Damien. Paul says whether he meant it or not, he definitely meant to grab his arm and flip him over, and there's only one way you're heading down there, and that's down on your head.
Yeah, well, Downey gave him a flick, so there was frustration there. So then he just pure frustration. He lifted up Tim O'Mahony. So now I don't believe, just being straight up, I don't believe that he went to put him down on his neck, but it just shows you the strength of Cian Lynch that he lifted him up so easy up in the air and he landed on his neck. Right now, so there's no point painting this. It was a dangerous tackle, right? I don't think he meant to do it, but he did it, right? So, Colin, who do I blame? Like this, I have a huge issue with the linesman.
Who's that? Was that James Owens? No,
I think it was James Owens was on that side.
Yeah, well, he's beside the column, so he can also the referee. The referee didn't see it, which is fair enough. He didn't see it, so that's what his linesmen are there for. James Owens, like this. I know he was in enough of bad press over the year, but to me, he didn't want to make a call, right, okay, and then he went into the umpires, they didn't make a call. So in fairness, the ref was right to issue 2 yellows. I've always said this, if you're in doubt, just issue 2 yellows like this. Now, Tim O'Mahony wasn't happy, but Cian Lynch then knew he did wrong, and then he started making out he was injured. But it was a dangerous tackle, yes, it was a dangerous tackle. He went down and he pretended he was hurt, right, but James Owens didn't do his job. It was bad official. And I'd say it's now, I don't care who it is, he was beside it, he seen what happened, he should be able to go, this is a dangerous tackle. Very, very bad linesman play, and I would say that's very poor.
Yeah, and amazingly, the Limerick crowd, O'Mahony got the yellow, and then Cian Lynch got the yellow, and the Limerick crowd booed Cian Lynch's yellow. Jesus. And then so I had never seen that on a hurling field before, and then I was sent a video last night. It was a direct message, and the fella that sent it to me says, "Did you see this? I'd rather be spat on than have this happen to me." And it was Graham Mulcahy walking over, picking up Robert Downey's hurl off the ground. Now, maybe he saw Robert Downey flicking Cian Lynch, who knows? He lifted up his hurl like you'd see, like you might do in a forest, breaking a stick, and he stamped the side of it and cracked his hurl in two.
Yeah.
Now, I've never seen that before. Tell me this is not a regular. Is this the worst thing you can do in a field? Have you seen this before, Paul?
No, I've never seen anyone do that before. Just go over, pick up someone's hurl and snap it in half. I just thought it was so unusual that, like, you know, like you were saying, if a lad spat on you, it's filthy, like, but it's not premeditated. A lad might do it in anger. But this was a kind of case wandering around. I see a hurl on the ground, I'll pick it up and I'll snap it in half. I thought it was one of the most odd things I've seen on a pitch.
But out of character for him, no? You would have marked him, would you?
Yeah, like, I mean, again, he's not a player who'd be, there's any way, bit of dirt or anything on the pitch.
No.
He wouldn't be needling at you. He wouldn't be throwing digs or anything like that. So completely out of character. Because when I saw it was Graham Mulcahy, I was going, that's not Graham Mulcahy. That's not what he does. And so out of character, and I couldn't make sense of it, why he did it. So I've no answer for why he did it or what the thinking behind it was.
Yeah, if I was bringing the dog for a walk and there was a long stick, Damien, I'd snap it like that so it'd be small enough for me to throw on for the dog. That's the only thing I can use to describe what he did to the hurl.
Yeah, well, I've never seen that. I've seen lads throwing away a hurl, you know, a bit of a scuffle started or whatever, and you'd throw away a hurl. I was at a match one day where a bit of a scuffle started and a lad picked up a hurl and he threw it in over the stand. so
I've seen that.
Your man would know, but I've never seen another lad breaking a hurl like that.
Yeah, geez, it was definitely a weird one. So they were just kind of two incidents that have been glossed over, I think. Like, I mean, I watched some of the Sunday game. I don't think it covered the Keane Lynch thing at all. See, this is the problem. When a team wins and are so impressive, you don't want to take away from their moment of glory and you don't want to tarnish it, but you have to. If you want to do it right, you have to do it. And, like, I mean, you remember, like, last week, John Small has been slated because Dublin lost. If Dublin had won, that might have been brushed because, let's not take away from a win. You know, you can't do it like that.
No, there's a thing, I think people are cautious that if you highlight these things, it's spiteful or it's, you know, that's what you're doing, that you're bitter or some way. It's not. Like, these are separate incidents that regardless whether a team wins or a team loses, you want to have the discussion. Is that right or wrong? Or whose fault was it there? And, you know, if these things happen on a pitch, you're entitled to have a constructive argument about it. But it's not bitter or it's not. Again, you know, if Limerick lost in that situation, you know, people would probably point into those indications and say, look at the frustration, similar to Dublin last week.
They would be all over the place.
These were indications. They don't like it when you're on top or whatever. But when they happen when you win, like you said, people kind of go, sure, you can't be that spiteful or, you know, the anti-Limerick brigade or whatever. It's not. You're just trying to have a conversation and go, why did you do this? Or what's the story? What's the thinking behind it? So, look, both incidents were very strange, and I think anyone's entitled to talk about them and still, at the same time, give credit to Limerick.
Yeah, there were two completely shocking. Sorry, Damien, I thought you were coming in there. There were two completely shocking incidents.
Sorry.
The reason I want to talk about, because you don't want to see that ever on a field again. Either situation, a judo flip or snapping a lad's hurl in half. Like, I mean, this cannot happen. And if you don't talk about it, then maybe people listening or watching will think, Jesus, jeez, they got away with that, dropping a lad on his head. Anyways, did you notice the noise in Croke Park, lads, during the parade? Did it come across on television, Paul? It was the loudest Croke Park I had ever heard in my life. This is obviously pent up frustration of 18 months. No All-Ireland, no fans at last year's one. It felt like there was more than 40. Like a lot of people, I was looking around thinking there's more than 40 in here, not just the noise. Didn't look like there was that many empty seats. I don't know, did they pull a trick or something? The noise in the parade, I couldn't hear myself think. My ears were ringing. Yeah,
it was savage. And it did come across on telly. You know, I didn't travel up yesterday. To be honest, I was kind of saying, look, I didn't want to arrive on into the stadium, 40,000 tickets, and I'm sure there was serious fight on for tickets across the counties. But no, look, it did come across on telly, and again, it was like a release of a valve, really, from what I could see, that, you know, people were back here, and it was amazing to see the All-Ireland. You know, a few pictures popped up from the All-Ireland last year in December or late November, early December, and a pitch black night and no one in the stadium, and it couldn't have been any further from it. So 40,000 people in the stadium. It did come across, and for both counties, probably the excitement of Cork that we got to the final and here we are, and I managed to get tickets and different things, but the atmosphere that came across on telly, and it was brilliant to see it. I felt myself nearly getting nervous watching it because the sound of the crowd and the atmosphere that was there, and you know, just the emotion that was involved in it. Even Michael Dignan before the match, you know, he was speaking, you could hear him getting emotional, but it was a fact we kind of almost had our All-Ireland final day back, you know, and that people were there enjoying it again, and we're probably stepping out of this whole pandemic, hopefully, or on the path anyway. But I think there was a lot of emotion involved in it, and it was just great to see that, you know, that emotion came through in the atmosphere in Croke Park. And look, I can only imagine it must have been unbelievable yesterday to be in the middle of it. Yeah, just the parade was the thing. The
that stood out for me, Damien. Like, I mean, I love a parade anyways, and I always feel like you, Paul. I'm not playing, but I start getting a bit nervous, and I don't know. It's a special thing. But the noise yesterday, it has to be the COVID, year and a half we're coming out of, Damien, where people. A poor woman, would you believe? I had a letter on my desk this morning when it came in. A poor woman from Cork was after sending me a letter, a 2-page letter, and she included in the letter all her old All-Ireland tickets and photocopies of pictures she'd taken in Croke Park, and explained to me what a great fan. As if, what am I going to do? Like, if I had an accreditation, I wouldn't get a ticket myself. She wanted a ticket. That was at the end of the letter. If you can do anything for me, I'm pleading with you to get me a ticket for this. Tickets are impossible to get, Damien, and just people got there so lucky they had a ticket. And then you're thinking of the year and a half we had, and every supporter, I think, in the stadium just cheered at the top of their voice. And the parade was something very unique.
Oh, it was. I personally loved it. I loved watching the All-Ireland yesterday and seeing the crowd back there. And as I said, I loved seeing it when it wasn't a kind of like a wintry night. So I was really looking forward to yesterday's match. So I actually love watching this Limerick team play. I just think they're phenomenal. Like this, but as you said, the roar and the crowd, and even I suppose it's the Hagerty's first goal and Kingston's goal. Jeez, you could tell the crowds were going bananas. Personally, I love all that stuff. I love the emotion in the crowd. But regarding tickets, Colin, I'd say it was impossible to get tickets for yesterday's match. I know it was half the attendance, but you laugh when people are desperate for tickets, what to do. Like, I had a rake of customers from Limerick ringing me, wondering, is there any way you could get me a ticket, please, Damien? And Jim, I bought that car off you. I said, where will I get a ticket? But it's like when you're desperate and you just want to go, you will do absolutely anything. But I hopefully it'll come to the stage where it'll come to full volume attendance in Croke Park again, and we'll have a full house again. But I personally love to see the crowd back there. I love the crowd roaring and jumping in, flags. It's brilliant.
Yeah, she's definitely desperate when I'm getting a letter. There's no doubt. I hope she got one, because I only got the letter this morning.
Yeah.
And because this letter was so, bloody heartfelt and so much effort went into it, I would have made a few phone calls to see, is there anything? You wouldn't have got them. You're not getting one on the Friday before the All-Ireland. No. But anyways, listen, I hope she got there. We'll leave it there, lads.
Colin, if you got it, you could have brought her up into the press box.
Well, listen, she could have watched it in the press box. She might have had more insights than I had looking down at it. Right, we'll come back in part 2 and we'll talk about the match. All right, lads, so we'll talk about the game here. So we know it's Limerick 3-32, Cork 1-22, and we'll start with the goals. Because watching the Sunday game last night, I watched the highlights back, because at the match things are happening so frantically that it's hard to remember everything. But the Hegarty goal first, right? So Luke Meade tried a handy hand pass. Just before that, Tim O'Mahony and Gerard Hegarty had contested a high ball. They both landed down on the ground at the same time, right? Two of them hit the ground. Tim O'Mahony got up and, like a headless chicken, just starts running down bald-headed for Cian Lynch, who's been marked by Robert Downey at this stage. Yeah. And it just took one hand pass inside and Gerard Hegarty's through and goes. Yeah. Now, Tim O'Mahony's marking the player of the year here. Yeah. He's obviously told you mark Gerard Hegarty. Yeah. There's a time when, you can leave your man potentially and help your teammate. But when Gerard Hegarty's inside the 45, that's not a time, is it? That's just the start of the game. And we'll continue on with more examples, but that just seemed they continued kind of as they started. Yeah. And that was the thing. And it seemed to be, I couldn't figure out for ages, are they man marking or are they zonal? Because at times they just seem to be running away from their own man. Okay, you do encourage them supporting and getting in and tackling and surrounding the Limerick lads, because that's something you'd have to do. Yeah. But there was times where you weren't it looked like the Cork players weren't looking at their own man. Now Luke Meade's one, that's criminal. He hand passed the ball backwards towards his own goal, not knowing who's behind him. Now he might have seen someone in his rear view mirror or something and said, yeah, I'm going to pop it back to him. But something I would say in that position, and at the time, let's say when we played Limerick in 2019, in a similar position at the end of the match, the one where Adare O'Donovan got to the sideline, a throw ball went in. Before the throw ball, I looked back to see, is Owen Murphy behind me? Can I get the ball back to him? And I looked, and Aaron Gillan was standing there. So I said, I can't go backwards with this ball, because first of all, we're up by a point, and if I'm not going to run back towards my own goal here, I'm going to keep the ball coming out
Joey Holden popped it to me. I was near the sideline, and lad said, "Why did you just try and strike it?" Because I was saying, one, I don't want to be caught for over travelling. Two, I don't want to go back towards my own goal because Aaron Gillan is behind me, and I was caught for a sideline. So when I looked at that and I saw Luke Meade just hand passing it back towards his own goal, I said, "You don't know who's behind you. What are you doing?" Do you know? But like you said, two lads went towards Cian Lynch, and straight away I was going, you have one of the biggest men in hurling about to sprint through the middle, you know, stuff like that.
And Downey had him held up, you see. That's what I don't like. He didn't need help necessarily.
Yeah, it's like the thing they say in football, the sideline is another man. Like, as in, you have him held up, you nearly have him towards the end line. Just stand him up and keep him out there, but don't get tunnel vision and not look, where's my man? Because there's surely, if you're not marking someone, there's someone free somewhere on the pitch, you know. So the first goal, I just thought so early in the match, you know, I couldn't figure out, are you man marking here now, or are you zonal, or what are you doing? And they didn't seem to know either, which was criminal. And sure, look, Limerick just copped it straight away, and Cian Lynch popped it through, and sure, a great goal out of it.
Yeah, they're great at giving that pass when they are a bit under pressure, and if there's 2 or 3 on one man, they know someone else has to be free. The second one was completely comical, Damien. You wouldn't see this in a club game where Robert Downey's marking Flanagan and O'Donoghue's marking Gillan, and Flanagan came from behind Gillan, pointed out, looking for the ball. And the ball went down that side. O'Donoghue didn't really see Flanagan making the run. So O'Donoghue thought, I'll be smart now and I'll run across. Gillan's not even running for this. So he just leaves Gillan, comes over to try and intercept that ball. Flanagan gets it, and just in an All-Ireland final, you're getting Gillan getting a pass completely unmarked on the bloody 21-metre line and sticks it away. Like, comical stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing about it as well, like Seamus Flanagan got the ball, Colin, and just to say about Flanagan, I think he's the most improved hurler on that Limerick team. I know he only scored 1 point yesterday, but I thought what he did for the team, you know, and it often happened to me as a corner forward. I might only score a point, and lads start saying I only scored a point, but he laid off so many scores and he worked so tirelessly and for the team. I want to acknowledge that, because often you'd only speak about the players that get the scores, but when he got the ball, it was a pure training session drill, and I'm on about this the whole time. It was stick pass straight to Gillan. Gillan caught the ball, he turned onto his favourite left-hand side. But the thing about it is, and you're right, he wasn't marked, which is hilarious in an All-Ireland final. But watch the finish column. Gillan drove that ball and he wanted it to bounce in front of the goalkeeper, which is literally impossible. It hit the ground in Croke Park, basically grass on concrete, we'll say, and the ball hit it and travelled straight to the back of the net. And it was a brilliant goal. It was a sucker punch. But like as you said, the marking was absolutely shocking. But like once again, Flanagan's stick pass to Gillan, and Gillan's finish was top class. And like, but as you said, like I think there was a rule. Maybe Paul can verify this, but the rule was that one time Brian Cody said to the Kilkenny players that if you're as much as the width of your arm away from your forward, he's too far. And I don't know whether that's only a myth, but like that's how tight you have to be to your man column, is the width of your arm. That's as far as room as he gets. Right? And like the Cork players give the Limerick forwards way too much space in the story.
Yeah, well, like I mean, that's not no incredible insight from Brian Cody. You mark your man tight means that you're up beside him and you're not leaving him out of your sight.
Yeah.
And the idea, we'll get on to Mark Coleman in a minute, because we'll go through this second goal or third goal first. So Hegarty, this is probably the worst example. Gearóid Hegarty. There's no one within 20 metres of him.
Yeah, I say
under the Cusack stand.
Yeah.
And did you see Tim O'Mahony running into the shot from the other side of the bloody field? At the very end, Robert Downey gave a half-hearted effort at bloody stopping him.
Yeah.
He cuts inside and buries the goal, and now Tim O'Mahony's landing into the... What's going on here in an All-Ireland final, Paul? Like, mark your man. Where is your man at all times?
Yeah, there was no man marking happening, and it was just criminal, because obviously when you see it from the normal view that the camera gives you, you think, oh, he's after drifting away here. But when you see it from the end view behind the goal, there was no one with him, and there was no one seemed to even acknowledge that Gearóid Hegarty is free here. And Cian Lynch was running up the line, okay, he was being hounded. But even as it was happening, as it was playing out, there was no one running towards Hegarty even at that stage. And Hegarty picked it up, had a look around, and he wasn't even at full sprint. He was just trotting in, little jink, and stuck it. And you could see, if you look further out the pitch, the half back line of Cork was actually out around midfield. And I was going, okay, you were flooding forward with the ball, but once you lose the ball, start flooding back. Don't start going, oh, we'll see, or that's not my man. But there seemed to be a lot of people just being like unaccountable for their players. Like, who's man marking? And I think the easiest thing to do, if you're going, okay, we're marking Limerick, and people talk about solutions and how do we beat them, I think first of all you have to go toe to toe with your man. Pick a man who's responsible for him. All right, I'm at Gearóid Hegarty. Gearóid Hegarty goes in corner forward or he's wing forward, wherever he is, I'm with him and I'm hounding him. If Gearóid Hegarty beats me, he beats me, but I'm with him, I'm hounding him, I'm staying with him. I'm not going zonal, okay, I'll go with Gearóid Hegarty, because they'll confuse you. If you think I'll go with Gearóid Hegarty, now Cian Lynch is over here, I'll take Cian Lynch, and now the lad who was marking Cian Lynch, Gearóid Hegarty's gone missing, and he goes, oh no, I'm in here, I'm in this zone, Gearóid Hegarty. There's confusion everywhere. Pick a man, go with him. But what I think is criminal is the fact not even to lay a hand on him. You know, get out there, stick something into him, and at least make life hard on him. But there wasn't even a hand laid on him, which is criminal.
There was, like, I mean, what was happening, Cadigan followed Morrissey, like we predicted last Friday, and Tim O'Mahony was marking Gearóid Hegarty. And then the big one was Mark Coleman and Cian Lynch. What's he going to do? And he's been trying to drop off. Now, I don't know. I saw a couple of examples where Luke Meade was going back to pick up Cian Lynch, and then Mark Coleman would drop or whatever. You know, it didn't happen that often, because Cian Lynch, you know, Damien, is there, like, Cian Lynch drops into midfield. It's very handy for a midfielder to pick him up then. But Cian Lynch played acute. Cian Lynch played a lot more forward. Where now Mark Coleman's trying to drop off a lad who's in a feckin', you know, in a dangerous position, and Luke Meade's too far to go to pick him up. I think Cian Lynch played it very, very cute in that one. So Mark Coleman was of the... Like, he didn't know whether to be dropping, whether to be marking. He was doing one or the other. And Cian Lynch ran amok, and the full back line had no cover. Like, he didn't know where he was coming or going. Mark Coleman didn't have a good game at all. But I think that was a system probably issue. And Cian Lynch, I was sent 27 screenshots, Damien, this morning by a friend of mine. And this is only from the Sunday game, of Cian Lynch and nobody near him in scoring positions. Like, imagine giving probably the best player in the game at the moment a free role in an All-Ireland final.
Well, I reckon the Cian Lynch, I said this to you last, Thursday, I reckon there was going to be a big performance in Cian Lynch, because I reckon that man has standards and he raises the bar, and I don't think he was happy with his own semi-final performance like this. But like, it was straight from the off. I think it was 12 seconds. He got laid off the pass from William O'Donoghue straight to him and drove it straight over the bar.
And no one on him, Damien.
He was setting a bar. What?
No one on him for that point, and that they continued.
I agree with you. If we were only playing club hurling, or even if it was junior, it doesn't matter. You'd be going out and say, lads, you got to mark your own man. And I agree with that. Whatever game plans you have, you've got to mark your own man. You're in control of your own man. That's your responsibility. I've always said this. Like, I don't care like this, and we often have lads going, pull back and mark my man. Like, you're in responsibility of your own man. And like, some of them Limerick forwards, the amount of space they got in the world, and that's actually two All-Irelands in a row. We'll say, for example, for Gearóid Hegarty, that he's basically played 2 All-Ireland finals and he's hardly been marked. Like, he should have scored a third goal as well. Remember that column? He missed the third goal as well. And Cian Lynch ran riot there yesterday. So he did, and half the time he wasn't being marked, or not being marked tight enough, as we'll call it. But yeah, I thought Cork should have went with a sweeper myself up to the first half, and maybe go for it in the second half. You know, try to keep the score down. Like, maybe they had a different game plan, but it didn't work.
Yeah, I'm starting to think a sweeper is the only way to go 5 forwards and have an extra 7th defender, Paul, because all this talk is too easy. One thing that Limerick do, and they're smart, is this idea that Coleman has to be the sweeper. Like, Lynch was playing too well and he was in a dangerous position. Gearóid Hegarty could be way back the field, but Tim O'Mahony's following him. And Coleman's dropping off Lynch, who's in a dangerous position. Why can't Coleman mark the man who's in a dangerous position? Whoever's man goes back too far, and a midfielder can handily pack him up. I often see with Limerick, Hannon could be the extra man, Nash could be the extra man, Finn could be the extra man. They swap it around based on who's not dangerous at the moment. Whereas if it's always Coleman, you know, I can imagine Limerick just saying before this game, Cian, you stay in dangerous positions. If he's going to drop off you, you know, what can he do in that situation? The easiest thing is to drop off a man that heads off back into midfield. He gets lost in the crowd, and your midfielder can pick him up handy enough. And like that, you do see Limerick adapt to it very quickly. And I think if you want to go and you want to play a sweeper and you pick one man to be your sweeper, it's far too hard to keep that man as the sweeper. If you're like, you need a savage game plan to that one man gets to be the sweeper for the whole entire game, doesn't mark a man. And like you said, what Limerick seem to do is the first thing they do is everyone get a man, and if someone doesn't have a man, okay, you're the sweeper now, and they're all capable of playing the sweeper. So like you said, Sean Finn could be like, they all grab a man, nearest man to him. Like, let's say as a play goes on, they break it down, right, everyone grab a man, they grab a man, okay, Declan Hannon is free now, and he holds it and he talks and he keeps control. But then a play might evolve
Declan Hannon grabs a man, and next thing Diarmaid Burns is a little bit free. Diarmaid Burns slots in and goes, okay, yeah. And they do it like that. They don't try and say Declan Hannon has to be the free man. No, we're all man markers, and if it turns out then that there is someone free, play the free man, and you know what the role is. And that's the thing, they all know what that role is. They know that when the ball comes down to the backs, let's say if it goes over to the left half back position or down to left corner back, and we saw it a few times, Jack O'Connor actually ran into a bit of trouble because the spare man ran across and it was just a cul-de-sac, so you had lads converging on him because the spare man would just run over and help where the ball is, as opposed to sitting in that pocket hoping that, you know, lads will pop you the ball and we can just work it out. So you can't just go with one man, but I do agree, you do need to filter players back and not just, I suppose, go man for man. You need players pulling back to be that free man.
Yeah. So because Coleman didn't know whether to drop off or whether to be marking, he was probably doing half and half. And the one time I did see Luke Meade picking up Keane Lynch, Coleman was able to drop without having to worry about him. Sure, Dara Donovan was just on his own, completely free, running around with the hand up looking for balls because nobody dropped back on him. I thought it was all very confused stuff from Cork in its entirety, Damien. But like, I mean, when you look at a situation where the times where the half back line of Cork were all trying to mark their men or pushed up, the space in front of Flanagan and Gallan is just incredible. But it's their movement, Flanagan's movement in particular, because Gallan will stay on the edge of the square for a longer ball. Flanagan never stops. He plays as a target man, and I don't mean a target man like Declan Dalton or like, you know, years ago. He's a target man who's constantly out in front, and when he gets out in front, it sticks. You look, Jack O'Connor gets out in front and he could run over the ball or it doesn't get it up. He's weak. He's only a little slip of a fella. Like Flanagan, when you give the ball up to Flanagan, number one, he's going to be out in front of his man, well in front of him. And number two, it's sticking to him. Like, I mean, they have it everywhere, Limerick. They just really do. And the ball that they give into him is brilliant. And he makes brilliant runs off the ball, over back, and then shoots out to the wing. I remember a few times in the first half, it was just Jack O'Connor and Horgan inside, loads of room in front of them. Neither of them made a run. Even Jack O'Connor didn't make a run. It was like he was waiting for the ball to come up a little bit further and let Cork get caught in possession because they're not getting it down. I don't know. Like, I mean, a target man should be out in front all the time. And I was a bit disappointed with Jack O'Connor that he wasn't able to do that.
Well, when you're playing in the full forward line column, whether it's hurling or football, the rule is that you have to always try to get out in front of your man. Look, it's always going to be the case. It'll happen and it'll be tough enough. But as I said to you, I think Flanagan is the most improved hurler on that Limerick setup. I think he had an unbelievable season, actually. So I did, and as I said yesterday, what Flanagan brings is he's a huge target man. So he's able to hurl and he's able to come out in front and he's able to take a couple of scores. Even his point yesterday was a lovely score. But what he did yesterday was, if you were to add up all the scores that he made up for his teammates, like I reckon it possibly could have come to 1-3, 1-4, 1-5 in assists. Like this, and he's an ultimate team player. He even gave a lovely little ball there, if you can remember, with a bit of vision to Graham Mulcahy through a couple of players.
Yeah.
Like, and Mulcahy could even went in and maybe went for a goal. But that's what Flanagan was bringing. So basically, you have workers, you have scorers in that Limerick team. Then you have Keane Lynch that is a wizard, right? And then you have Flanagan that's an assist man that can get a score, that can lay off a ball and no problem laying off a ball. Like this, but you're on about the ball being delivered and all that column. It's all coming from the training pitch. It's all coming from good coaching. This has been discussed, has been spoken about. I will guarantee they're being shown video analysis of where all the what we call the positive results are coming. But out in front, yeah, there's a big difference between the Cork full forward line and the Limerick full forward line, 100%. And then you have Peter Casey that's floating. Yeah. Casey just floats around and gets the offloads.
Is like, would much coaching be done to a full forward line on movement, Paul? Because like, I think about this a good bit. Say there's a 2-man full forward line in there. Are they communicating and moving? Because in Gaelic football we've been doing that for years, because you get good passes in, whereas traditionally hurling, a good high ball will come in and you might loop around, or it's different movement. Yeah. Whereas now the ball's coming in like Gaelic football. It's coming in lovely. So does hurling need, like, is Limerick out ahead of other teams coaching movement, and how to get free, and the setup of the 3 lads in there, 1 in front of 2. I don't see other teams kind of at that, like that 1 in front of 2 was in Gaelic football for a long, a long time.
There's lots of stuff that is coming on, and like you said earlier with Paul Knirk, that he's bringing a lot of stuff from football. There's 2 big things that I think that he has brought to it. And like, you often see things at inter-county level that transfers down to club level, and see it happen at club level now. And nearly every team is setting up in a way that you'll have one forward that'll drift out a small bit and create space for the two forwards. And like Damien is saying, that's Peter Casey. He'll drift out and leave Seamus Flanagan and Aaron Gillan inside. And as you said, from football, they come in nice and tight together. We played them down in Thurles, was it 2018, I think it was, we played them down in Thurles. And we hadn't encountered this before, where they all bunched in together. You had Graham Mulcahy, you had Seamus Flanagan, and you had Aaron Gillan, and they bunched in together and they would break. And now we're talking about this for the last few years because we know it's happening, but that was the first time we encountered it. And we were kind of going, what's this and how do we deal with it? And brilliant, because you're asking questions at the full back line. So now the way they seem to be doing it, and it's again another part that Cork were criminal of yesterday, was they just allowed them to do it. You know, they created the space where they just didn't go man for man with them and didn't chase him. Seamus Flanagan makes the ball stick when it gets in there. Aaron Gillan makes it stick.
That's the difference, isn't it?
And that is a difference. First, it's great if the ball is going in, but if they're not able to make the ball stick, it's useless. You know, it's pointless. The ball is going in, great, but there's acres of space in front of them. Cork needed to sit back and block that out. Limerick want to do it. You know they want to do it. Cork need to have the bottle and the communication to be able to sit back and block that out. But it is coming from football and it's coming from Paul Connacht. And the other thing I would say as well is something that I see in hurling now that is coming from football is, okay, we say about going man marking, but in football, when I see a player go past another player, regardless of whether it's his man or not, he goes with them because he knows he's a supporting player. That's not something hurlers really
wouldn't
do.
Be used to that, no.
Hurlers wouldn't be used to seeing a man off the shoulder and going, oh, that's number 9 on his back, but I'm marking number 11.
Yeah.
I don't. Oh, that's someone else's man. Whereas now you see the Limerick boys, a player goes off his shoulder, whether it's, let's say, William O'Donoghue is out at midfield and he sees Coleman going, he runs with him because he goes, I'm taking that. And that's something I think came from football as well, because that's not a traditional hurling thing. We go, oh,
track and runners, yeah.
Track and runners.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do. And it's something Cork didn't do. Cork didn't track runners. They kind of went zonal. Sometimes did they go man for man? We don't know. But one thing they definitely didn't do was track runners. They didn't track any of them. So I think that is something. There are two things, you're dead right in saying it, that have come from football. And there's lots of stuff that is coming from football that in hurling are going, oh, this is actually something we could use really well. But Limerick are doing it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like even Davy Fitz with Wexford with their runners were never tracked and he caused mayhem. He nearly won in All Ireland, you know, with this kind of stuff. That track and runners is a big thing.
Yeah, and Colin, just an interesting thing, and this is for people that are listening to it, right? Do you know the way in full forward lines, you'd have one that goes into number 13 and the full forward goes to 14 and number 15 goes into 15 corner. And just look at Aaron Gillan's goal. For anyone that's listening to this programme and they can look at YouTube like this, it's hilarious. The two boys line up in front of each other, Gillan and Flanagan. They're one in front of the other. And when the ball is driven in, one can go left and one can go right. It's nearly the new formation of the full forward line. So they actually are literally one in front of the other. They're not in their position. And then Casey floats around, we call it the semicircle, and gets on to breaks. And that's where they got their goal. If someone wants to watch that piece, and you know who does that a lot as well was Tipperary with Seamus Flanagan. So that, it's an Eamon O'Shea thing, that they line out in front of each other, not in their positions, corner forward and full forward in front of each other with about 15 yards between them. Yeah. It's nearly the new formation of inter-county full forward line.
In a straight line, yeah. Well, it is Casey on the D and it's Flanagan and Gillan almost just standing on the edge of the small square. That's where they stand and they break. But they could go behind each other or Gillan mightn't go at all.
Yeah.
So Flanagan will go either side because he's relentless in his I'm not going to lie, I've said it on the show before, he reminds me of when I played that role for Laois, where I'm not a good scorer. Now Flanagan's a lot better now, he's improved at it.
Yeah.
But your job for the team is to be out in front, get that ball and give it to someone running past you.
Yeah.
And he just reminds me of that role that I played in hurling, and that's why I see a lot of these similarities. But then Gillan, you saw the ball, he didn't go running for and he caught it over O'Donoghue.
Yeah.
Remember, that was given in long to him if the Flanagan one's not on.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then look, from a defensive point of view, Kyle Hayes, Jack O'Connor tried to take him on. It's just like a minor taking on a senior, and he just flicked the ball and just set up another attacker. Hannon, Robbie O'Flynn tried to take him on. And we're thinking this is how Cork can get at Limerick. Running at them didn't work at all.
No, it didn't. And it didn't because they seemed to be running at them on their own. There was no support play. I mean, Jack O'Connor, like we said, there was one ball he got out at the far side in the first half and he ran down and I just looked and there was 3 Limerick players around him. Like, where was he meant to go? As fast as he is, you're running into Sean Finn, you're running into Morrissey, you're running into whoever. It's all well and good if Jack O'Connor wants to run and make that move. Okay, it worked off for Kingston for Kingston's first goal. He just managed to get through and, Sean Finn didn't pull him down, probably well aware of the new rule, obviously. But they were running and there was no support. And that was a big thing for me, which was I think Cork would be very disappointed with. Not only when they were going forward, there wasn't huge support, but they didn't support support each other when they were meant to be defending as well. So that was evident across the field. They were working as individuals. Where you look at Limerick, they're not individuals. A lad gets a ball, and you look at the first man who wins the ball for Limerick. As soon as he wins it, he doesn't even look to strike it. He has the hurl shortened right down, and he's looking to pop it off to the man who's moving in the other direction that has the head up.
Yeah.
And something we would have worked on, and again, not to be going back, I'm sure lads will be giving out about talking about 2019. One thing that we would have worked on and said we have to do is hit them before they get their head up. You can't let them get their head up, because if they look up, they pop a ball off and suddenly the ball is out into open space.
Yeah.
Don't let them get it into open space, because then we're talking about the full cycle. And if you look at a lot of Limerick scores, ball breaks down in the, let's say, the full back line. Sean Finn gets it. Sean Finn looks up and pops a hand pass out to Declan Hannon. Declan Hannon moves it out to Will O'Donoghue, has a look up at the field. Now they have the heads up, and we're talking of Seamus Flanagan or Aaron Gillan running. That's the cycle, you know. Hit them before they get the head up, and don't let them, worst case scenario, let them strike the ball when they're not looking. If they want to strike it over the shoulder and take a chance, but give the back a chance to win that ball, or at least put so much pressure on them that they're not just looking around, I'll pop the ball to Kyle Hayes, because they just popped it around yesterday.
And it all goes back to, Paul, the point you're making of not tracking runners. So, like, I mean, the ball's given from, just as an example, Dan Morrissey to Declan Hannon. Barry Nash is sprinting past him potentially, or someone else is, and it's laid off, and now he's out into open space, and that runner's not tracked, because you're thinking, geez, he's not, you know, he's not a danger at the moment. But that's what they do. They support the man on the ball brilliantly until they get out into clear space, and then it's delivered, and their movement's brilliant. Like, I mean, it's flawless at the moment, the game plan. And then, you know, like, I mean, one other thing, Damien, here is that Limerick had 58 shots. So, like, the big one is that when Cork scored their goal, I remember I looked down at my programme and I write a few things in it so I'll remember, and I looked back up and I saw the umpire waving the flag the other end. Now, this is too fast, right? So, like, Limerick got 58 shots away. That's too many. Like, I mean, in the game of hurling, that's not even including Cork's shots away. So, say when Kingston scores that goal, would it not be better if the referee doesn't allow that puck out until he blows his whistle and is ready for it? Like, I mean, because I don't know, I think it's gone too fast, as in, Hannon wasn't even being marked. He just got the ball and ran up the field and put it over the bar. That's too easy. Like, if Brian Cody was refereeing an A versus B's in Kilkenny, and he wouldn't allow a puck out like that, because he said, wait till everyone's marking each other. Do you ever hear, like, referees I used to have with managers, they wouldn't allow the game resume until everyone was marking? Would it bring the contest back into it a bit, Damien, that these short puck outs to a man that's not being marked and it goes straight over the bar? Like, would the game as a spectacle be better if the referee just made the goalkeeper wait 10 seconds and blew his whistle, we're ready to go again?
Yeah, well, the rule is that they have to wait until the whistle is blown when you get a score, right? So Kingston went up the field and he got his goal, right? So basically, Quaid should have had to wait, right? But I remember watching that piece of clip, and I know the one you're on about, Colin, right? And I remember Peter Casey back on his 21-yard line helping out his team, right? When Kingston got the goal. So Peter Casey started running back up the field, see this, right? No one bothered picking him up, right? Quaid put the ball straight out to Peter Casey, right? Which I didn't realise who scored it, because I was watching that in video. I didn't know, and when they showed it again, the umpire was waving the white flag down. And it was only when I was watching the Sunday game. But number one, Cork again is an example that they weren't marking up, right? Number two, it showed Casey had the freedom that he could roam around, right? But three, it's. I think you shouldn't be allowed puck out a ball, especially when you get a score, until the whistle. But that actually is a rule, Colin, that you're not meant to puck out a ball until you get a whistle. But then going back to the training session, I've often seen that with Portumna training sessions, where you'd have a lad in goals, and next thing he pucked the ball out to the cornerback and the wing back, and no one marked him, and you stop it because it's an old handy ball and he's not being challenged, so it's doing nothing for him at a training session, you know, and he's getting away with murder with saying his man hasn't picked him up. But yeah, the game has gone too fast, but the rule actually is there, Colin, that he should have had to wait for the whistle to be blown, which he didn't, and he got away with it. But the other thing was, who was marking Peter Casey in the middle of the pitch and not picking him up, and next thing he just catches the ball and throws it over the bar. It was so easy for Limerick in so many different areas in an All-Ireland final. It was hard to believe.
You would forgive the defender a little bit there, Paul. Peter Casey's gone so far back. I might just wait here and be the +1. And then he gets the quick puck out. Yeah. And it goes, like, what's happening here? Like, I'm sure you remember examples of Cody blowing it up, saying you're not all marking or whatever.
Yeah.
That's happening now in All-Ireland finals.
Yeah,
Isn't that
yeah.
hard to believe that
Yeah.
a quick puck out is just going to a man completely free
Yeah.
and it's going over the bar the other end? It's
Yeah,
hard, it's
yeah.
bizarre, is it not?
Well, it just comes back to the principles of man marking and being touch tight and different things. And you say about what would we have done in training. Like, one of the things, Brian would have rarely blown the whistle in training, but one of the things he would have absolutely blown a gasket for was if there's anyone in acres of space. It would have been criminal because there's no excuse for it, and you wouldn't even dare put your hand up and say, oh, sure, I was marking your man, because it's an excuse. There's no excuse for it, and teams developed this. Wexford would have developed it over the years, where they would have had like the likes of different lads just running up the wings. So the wing backs would go beating up. Sean Murphy might just take off up the way.
Yeah.
We hit a wide. And the ball, they'd be gone sprinting up the line because the keeper has the ball in his hands and he's going to strike one, because again, like Damien said, with a wide, you don't have to wait for the whistle to be blown and you strike it up.
Right.
But referees have kind of got distracted. Like, you can walk into a referee before a match and you say to him, what are you looking for today? And he'll go, oh, advantage, I'm going to play a nice bit of advantage here and I'm going to pull you on steps and that, whatever. And it almost seems to change from referee to referee as to what they're going to pull for. But I remember there was a phase of during the league where Clare were pucking out the ball really quickly. And you'd nearly go in, and we were talking about it, I'd say, highlighted to the referee before the match. Listen, are we waiting for the whistle there, or can we just puck away?
Right.
And you're reminding the referee, because
Yeah.
you don't want them to puck out the ball too quickly. But like you said, the rule is there.
So it's not being enforced really then?
It's enforced in some matches. You'll often see it if you go to a club match and a lad will puck out a ball and the referee will blow the whistle correctly. Like, he'll blow the whistle because he's marking it down in the book, and that's the reason it's there for.
It's to give him time to do
and
that.
you'll hear
right?
the other opposition will roar, going, what are you blowing it up for? We had the ball. I said, yeah, well, the rule is there, and you will see it enforced sometimes. Probably a hard one as well to enforce in All-Ireland final day,
With the noise
and with the atmosphere. And I'll be honest, watching the match yesterday, I heard a lot of whistles because the 40,000 people. There seemed to be a few people in the crowd that were blowing whistles, and I thought it was actually quite distracting. Now, not that has anything to do with the puckouts or anything, but it is quite hard. And I think Fergal Horgan was just literally, ball went in over the bar, marking it down, and he sees the ball is out. Let it on, and he was trying to we're talking about flow. We're talking one week about having flow in the match.
But is it a good flow when lads that are completely unmarked are getting it and sticking it over the bar? Is that a good flow, or would it be better if the referee waited 10 seconds, let kind of things reset, and now stick it out, and we're going to see a contest here?
No, I would say let it on. I mean, it's Cork's fault. It's not Fergal Horgan's fault.
Right.
So he's just playing. Look, mark it down. If he's marked it down, happy enough, play away. But it shouldn't be a case of, hold on, wait till I blow the whistle. Cork, are you happy enough? Okay, Cork lads are marked up.
But that's
Grand.
an extreme version.
If he gives, I think, to be honest, let it on. If the ball goes over the bar, Fergal Horgan's happy enough that he docked it down and it takes him 2 seconds to do it, and the ball is going down. It's Cork's problem. Mark
you
up,
left him
mark
up.
Look, Limerick are sharper. Leave it on with Limerick. Leave the advantage with the attacking team, and on you go. Now, if it's a case where the ball is flying in over the bar and Nicky Quaid pucks out the ball and the ball isn't even in and the flag isn't even, okay, blow it back. But no, let him on. Let the flow to the game, and it's Cork's problem.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. But just a final word on Cork, Damien, here. Where do they go from here? Like, it's almost like you need to rip up the script. Fitzgibbon is in terrible form. Coleman looks more of a number 7 now than a number 6. Robert Downey might be better as a number 5. Tim O'Mahony can't mark. He might be better as a number 12. Like, they need some physicality in midfield. They brought Damien Catalan on to mark O'Donoghue because he was kind of bullying them around the place. Who's their new full back? Who's their new centre back? Who's their target man up front that's going to make the ball stick if that's the way if they want to play with the 2-man full forward line? Jesus, I don't know what their young lads coming through are like, but are they more kind of fleet-footed, less physical, skillful boys, or they need a few Limerick type players, I think.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing: the Cork will be praying for, and they'll be praying that they don't get Limerick in the first round of the Munster Championship next year. And in the regard, because if they get another hammering, for example, that'll be a hammering in All-Ireland final and then first round of the championship. So that's one thing that they'll be praying that they won't get. They'll be hoping they might get a favourable draw like this. But it's hilarious, what 2 days can do. Lads were saying that they were going to give them a running game to Limerick, and like this. They were just way off the pace, lads. And there's a lot of them players that aren't good enough, and now they have so many question marks over the team. So I think the Cork management have to go back to the drawing board again and see, as you say, Colin, are they going to look for a target man at 14, like, for example, a Flanagan, to see and maybe give Patrick Horgan the Roman role that Peter Casey had? They have a lot of question marks now over all their team. Are they going to go out and out with a sweeper from here on in no matter what? Who's going to play full back? You're dead right, but one thing's for certain is they don't want to meet Limerick, and they'll be praying that they won't meet Limerick in the first round of the championship next year, because they could get another hiding.
Yeah, where do you see them, Paul? Like, I mean, I know, like, and I like this might sound like hindsight stuff, but they got a terrible beating.
Yeah.
I didn't see that beating coming myself. Like, it's almost hoped and kind of, expectation in a lot of ways. You want to see a good match and, build it up. But, Jesus, on the evidence of yesterday, they're a mile off where they need to be.
Yeah, well, where I see them just being the mile off was just the aggression, the attitude, the thinking that, okay, if we go out here and Limerick beat us, they beat us, but we're going to get out here and put something on them, and we're going to get out here and have a cut at them. But the idea, I got the impression yesterday they wanted to play around Limerick, which just, you're not going to play around Limerick. They wanted to move the ball around away from the trouble areas, which Limerick will just say, fine, we'll work around you. You keep playing the way you want to play, and we'll just break you down anyway. It seemed like they had one tactic where I think regardless what your tactical play is going to be, whatever way you're going to set up, the one thing has to be there is the work rate and the attitude that we're going to get stuck in. Did Aaron Gillan have one free in the first half, maybe on the 21, the one who he's fouled for where Peter Case got? I think he had one inside the 65. That to me says that you weren't laying a hand on him. Like, you just let him on and let him do whatever. So you can go out there, and what I would say is, look, this Limerick team, you're going to have to tick a lot of boxes to beat them. You're going to have to, skillful, they're the most skillful team in the place. Work rate, physicality, everything. But you're going to have to start ticking those boxes. There's no one box you can tick that goes, right, this is tactically, oh yeah, no, they won't. They'll outwork you. They'll run around you. They'll run rings around you. So you're going to have to tick a lot of boxes. Where do Cork go? They do have a conveyor belt coming through, and when I looked at their minors the other night, I was looking at, they're huge men. And what I saw with the minors was they were playing with a kind of, I'm not going to say an arrogance, but they had great belief, and they said, we're going to go out here, and a great Galway team as well, which bet Kilkenny in the semi-final. Cork, wiped the floor with them, really. They ran rings around them. And I was saying, that's what the traditional Cork is, where they have an arrogance, they have an air about them, where they have full belief. You have Mickey O'Connell with the collar up and the jersey going out, and they have an arrogance that they're going to get in your face. Niall McCarthy and these lads. I don't see that in this Cork team. And that's where I think they need to go, where they get right up in your face, they don't care who you are, and the crowd gets behind them. That's what Cork need. But yesterday, they didn't give anything to get behind. So they need to bring lads come through to have a bit of steel, a bit of arrogance, and get back to that traditional Cork of get up into your face and we don't care who we're playing. They need to get back to that.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. Right, we'll leave it there, lads, and we'll come back with performance of the weekend. Okay, so performance of the weekend, and the first nomination is Cian Lynch, and we've gotten the bad stuff out of the way, so now we can focus on the good stuff. It's not just the flicks, Paul. He did 2 flicks back up into his hand. They're par for the course with Cian Lynch. He was involved in 2-10, scored 6 himself, set up both of Hegarty's goals. Celebrated a couple of points as well, which I thought was interesting. I don't often see him doing that, especially when they were winning so well. He celebrated the one that he snapped up into his hand and scored really fast. That was at close to the start of the second half, and there were 13 points of it. So he seemed to be fairly fired up. Again, the free role he was given, it has to be pointed out, definitely played into this. He was everywhere, but Jesus, if a lad was stuck at his shoulder, we wouldn't have been able to contribute that much. It's freaky what he contributed, really.
Yeah, it was. And he every time he got the ball, he looked to see who he could give the ball to. There was times where he delayed even having a shot because he was looking to see could have pop it off to anyone else, and he still came away with 6 points. But yeah, he was everywhere, and again, you'd want someone to mark him, at least throw a hand on him, and I still don't think it would make a difference, because for Garrod Hegarty's second goal, I think it was Coleman was up on him and swinging out, it didn't make a difference. But he was, and he just makes everyone click inside in that forward line, and we've all talked about it. He seems to enjoy what he's doing. He's drifting around getting balls, and what I thought was very mature of him, even when they were winning in the second half, he was popping the ball over the bar. He'd get a ball and he'd just tip it over the bar. He would just, instead of going, okay, I have to go for the jugular here, or I want to get my goal, he'd get a ball, centre forward, put it over the bar. And I think the last one he got, he was out around the 65. And it just showed the skill of him, regardless if he's in over at the sideline on the 21 or he's out in the 65. He can put it over from anywhere. But he just drifted all day, and it was really complete performance in how he set up 2-10 but scored 6 points as well. It was immense performance.
It was incredible. Paul mentioned that last point, Damien. So I remember when a 65, Shawnee McMahon was great at them for Clare, and a 65 used to be a hard one to get. He scored that from 65 metres over his shoulder, running in the opposite direction. That's freaky stuff.
Oh, he's we don't want to say, but his skill levels are absolutely incredible, and the speed of his mind and his wrists and his arms and his striking is just unbelievable. He scored 1 point in the first half, and he scored 5 points in the second half. So he's contributing all the assists and everything. His work rate is phenomenal, lads. You know the way sometimes when you're the marquee forward, you think, I don't have to work as hard as the rest of them. Like he's at the top working it hard. And I've always said this, my own opinion was that I always think that the best forward and the most playmaker, the lad is orchestrating everything. I always like to play him at number 11, Colin, because he gets on to more balls than any other forward, because the ball breaks the half forwards, he's close to that. If it goes to the other half, he's close, and he's not too far away from the full forwarding. But Cian Lynch, we can all say we like him, but the man is just brilliant. I'd say yesterday's hour was his best. That's my opinion. I thought he was absolutely brilliant yesterday, and I think he was well up for the game. As I said, I don't think he was too happy with his performance in the semi-final. I felt there was a big one in him, but look at. He loves his hurling. I would love if he got a haircut, if I was to be honest. So I was, but he just plays off the cuff, and he's all hurling. So he little flicks and all that. But 5 points from playing the second half, and they were all lovely scores. And making the 2 goals for Haggerty. I'm sure Haggerty is delighted that he laid off the 2 passes to him. But he's just a top-notch player.
Yeah, he definitely is. So like I said, then again, if Cian Lynch is being marked, Dan McCormack tried to mark him and had a good battle. Cian Lynch, you see some pictures of him in the dressing room, he's built like a bodybuilder, and he'd be well able to be man marked too. He still play well, but when you don't mark him, this is the damage he can do. I think that lesson has to go out. If anyone learned from Cork's suffering, is the day of Cian Lynch being dropped off. Because Cian Lynch won't go off so far back that a midfielder can easily pick him up. He stayed around that danger zone. Yeah. So dropping off him is just stupidity. And now teams have to think of another thing. Right, what will we do? Who are we going to drop back?
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, when McCormack marked him against Tip, he's still well able to hurl, which is a great thing about him. It's not just a case of when he's given space, he'll hurl away. He loves the battle. And something I think which he really has to be complimented for and not to be forgotten about either, is when in that Tip match when Tip were on top, the big player I could see,
he did, yeah.
It was him.
Yeah.
Do so it's all well and good when things are going well for a player that he's standing up and he's scoring balls, but I always had respect for Cian Lynch, but in that match against Tip, when things weren't going well for Limerick, he was still performing, he was still fighting, and he was still dragging the team on. And I think that day, particularly when he was walking off the pitch, he was brought off that day, the Limerick crowd stood up because they really recognised that when things weren't rosy in the garden for Limerick that day, there was one man still performing, and that was Cian Lynch. So he deserves his credit. Yesterday he received so much plaudits for all his skills and his flicks. And I would say 100% he does deserve it, because when things, the rare time, aren't going well for Limerick, he's still performing. And I think that's where the real genius is in Cian Lynch. We all know his skill and we all know what he's capable of, but he has the belly for the battle as well. He loves the battle as well, and he loves getting stuck in, and he's willing to fight for the team. So for me, the big performance for Cian Lynch this year was when Limerick were down against Tipperary, and that was the big thing. So he deserves all his plaudits, and he's just, I can't wait to see over the next few years where he brings it to.
Yeah, he's definitely bringing it to new levels. Peter Casey, Damien, was on course to score about 12 or 13 from play had he not got injured that time. He'd started the game incredible, and his 5th one was just beautiful, the dummy, and just sent Niall O'Leary for a Snickers or a bag of chips or whatever you want to say. It was just gas to see that. But he was at the top of his game, and I was thinking, Jesus, after all his bad luck in All Irelands or being dropped or not, and then almost being suspended, I said, geez, he's really taking his opportunity. And then he went and got injured, which was unfortunate. He was totally overshadowed then, I suppose, with Cian Lynch.
Yeah, well, Lewis, I was delighted for him. That's number one. I was delighted for Casey, because I was disappointed for him that he got sent off, right? Because I know what it's like playing corner forward, and I know there was a meal made of it, and I was delighted the whole thing was overturned, right? But then I was hoping that the whole thing, the build-up, that would say the negativity that wouldn't affect his performance like this, and thankfully it didn't, right? And he drove into the All-Ireland final, and he scored 5 points from play. And as you said, he was on course. He was on course to get man of the match, because it's like anything. Sometimes the ball just bounces for you, and you're on the button. And he was on the button. Even his pint he got out on the sideline. Jim Moore, there was a big ruck of players. The ball just came out. He rose and put it straight over the bar from the sideline. And then, as you said, the little shimmy, that he gave, that was a real winger. If an Irish winger done that, where you put your man the wrong way, it was just beautiful. And he uses such a small hurl like this, and his striking was just impeccable like this. But the only thing I'll say, Colin, if there's such a thing, right, is that he got injured, and Jesus, a complete misfortune. But he got injured, and he was being taken off, scoring 5 points from play, coming off the field. Where if you got injured and you hadn't got on the ball, I can assure you one thing. Peter Casey, he might have got injured, but he's a delighted man there today. He might be going around in crutches, whatever, but he bagged 5 points in All-Ireland final, 5-star performance in whatever, 33 minutes. And I'm saying it here now, I was delighted for him. I really mean that. I was delighted for him that he got to play in the All-Ireland.
Yeah, and he'll only have to watch 25 minutes of the match to replay the match when they're all watching it today. Yeah. One thing about that last point that he got is that he threw it out to dummy it. Now, he brought back the dummy the other side. Yeah. And you think, okay, he's going to hit it this time, but he jinked back the second. You know what I mean? I haven't really seen that before. Usually you throw the dummy, it gets you the space and put it over. Yeah. He did the dummy back and then a sidestep back to side that he was going on before the dummy.
Yeah,
so
it's like he knew that he was going to read him. So the dummy that he was throwing was like a double bluff for all the world. He was coming back knowing that O'Leary's going to follow him that way. Because again, I looked at loads of videos of him, and I said it earlier in the year when we played him in 2019. I was told you're man marking him, so I watched loads of videos of him, and he had a great year in that because he was popping up all over the place. And I was going, this fella's interesting, as in he's coming up, but he's not the marquee player. Everyone was talking about Aaron Gillan and Keane. I was like, this fella does a savage amount of work, and he's a different kind of a player. Like, he just pops up. But it was one of the things I said to myself when I was watching him. I said, look at the jinx on this fella. He keeps jumping around the place. So I was kind of saying to myself when I was marking him, he got a point off me that day now, and he did throw a shimmy to get it off me, but I was saying when I was marking him, I said, if he throws a jink left, I'm just going to go off right and let him come back, because he's going to throw a double one. So I said, I'll let him come back in my direction, because if I go off left, I'll be up in the Hogan stand and he'll be gone off run the other direction. So what I said to myself was, looking at the videos of him, I said, if he's going left, I'm going to go right and let him meet me back there when he comes back. So, but no, he's exceptional. And it was just a great piece of skill. But like you said, the one on the sideline at the Hogan stand, I mean, he had a half yard of space and took a glance over the bar. Like, it was brilliant. And like Damien, I was delighted for him. I don't even know the fella, to be honest. Never talked to him off the pitch. Seems like a real likeable fella, but it was great for him. Everything that was coming into the final, got to play the final, and even got his 5 points, got injured, but he will be a happy man this morning.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Gearóid Hegarty, Damien, what more do we have to say about him? The player of the year. For me, he's the match winner here. He set them rolling. He scored 2-2. He missed 2 points as well. Probably you would say it wasn't his, great. It's an incredible 2-2 in an All-Ireland final in the first half, and you're thinking, Peter Casey was the main man there. Like, I mean, he's just a monster of a man.
The story was, Colin, to be fair to Gearóid Hegarty, like, the game was won in the first half. Simple as that. Game was over, and Hegarty scored 2-2 from play. And I guarantee, and I know nothing about the man, but I bet you he was annoyed with himself that he didn't finish up, so he didn't with another 1-2, because he missed a goal and he missed 2 points as well, 2 long range scores. Yeah. So as I said, he could have finished the first half, lads, with 3-4. Like 3-4 in the opening half of an All-Ireland final. And also, just to give him, he took his goals brilliantly and also his points, but also his work rate was unbelievable, lads. To see it on television, he's over on the left-hand side of the pitch one stage, he's over on the right-hand side of the pitch trying to make tackles or cut off space. He's running left, he's running right. But I don't know, for such a big man, how he's able to get so much space in games and no one mark him. Whether he just stays running and floating and the length of his legs, he's able to run way faster than lads. But he 2 goals, he kept them low. They say to any young person that's watching, hit the corners with the net, and Adare 2 great goals. But I'd say he doesn't like being taken off either. I get that feeling he was taken off yesterday, which is fierce and annoying for everyone. But I suppose this is all the new game now. But he 2-2 open half, game was over. He set the tone.
He got an unbelievable ovation, which probably helped him walking off. But I've thought about this a lot again with Gaelic football. Do you know why they're not getting picked up? Because if they drift, they'll be followed. They work so hard. You can't man mark a man that's working. What's Tim O'Mahony meant to do? Well, I'm marking you while you're tackling someone else. It's just stupidity. That's why you tend to stand away. Oh, he's working, I'll stand. But now he's free. Yeah, because it was Brian Dooher I always used to watch. It was like, how is Brian Dooher constantly off, not being marked by anyone? It doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. And then you watch him. He's working like a dog down in the half-back line, tackling and his man doesn't... What's his man meant to do then? You can't man-mark a man working like a dog. Like, I mean,
it's nearly like a circuit breaker for losing your man. If you're being man-marked and you go and you tackle. But it is the dilemma you have to pose to backs. And something Gearóid Hegarty would do, and I'm sure he does, is... he'll drift back towards a half-back line. Let's say he's working, he breaks it down. But I'm sure he has a little look up then, where's my man? And I'll drift across. Someone like I would have always said in training, Henry was brilliant at it. Like his movement off the ball, where you have a little lance up, you go, okay, I'm on O'Mahony, and you're back working, you're hounding away. Now we have the ball, and let's say Sean Finn has it. I'm sure Gearóid Hegarty has a little look up, where's my man? I'll go across to the far side, because for Cork or for any team playing Limerick, there's fires all over the pitch, and which one do we put out? That's the problem for everyone. So Gearóid Hegarty, he might drift away for this one, someone follows him, but no one follows Cian Lynch. Cian Lynch puts the ball over the bar. The next ball comes through, Gearóid Hegarty drifts again, someone goes at Cian Lynch, Gearóid Hegarty gets the ball and on they go. So the problem is they pose so many threats everywhere that, like you said, he's tackling. Sure, why would I follow a man who's tackling? But you just have to do it. You have to go with him and you have to do it.
You shadow him while he's tackling someone else.
Once they you have to do something, but to do nothing and stand off him and go, hopefully we win this ball and hopefully, the ball comes out to me and we can work it through. But I think we're seeing now, if you haven't got enough indications now that you have to go with him and you have to follow him, I mean, it doesn't solve anything just to leave him off and let him do his own thing. Follow him and just stick to him. He's the hurler of the year, as a outgoing hurler of the year potentially. So
yeah. And just to finish up on Hegarty, Damien, his striking style. Hegarty looks like he's hitting with a pitching wedge. Like Diarmaid Byrnes looks like he's going with a driver. Like he pulls on it, whereas Gearóid Hegarty just kind of like it's a pitching wedge. It's a nice little one with backspin on it, maybe, or something.
He's striking for a big man. Like you might understand that, like, but a bigger man in hurling column can sometimes be lanky or more awkward, whatever. But he's not. When he runs with the ball, the length of his legs, he's striding away from lads. It's and even his second goal proved that. Like when he went on the run, like he got into the front of the goal so fast, but his striking is impeccable. And I'd love to know, and I don't know what training to do, but I'd love to know the amount of time to spend on first touch striking, ball to hand, and how much time to spend in the alleys and the wall balls. Because not just Hegarty's, but every one of that Limerick's team striking yesterday was impeccable. Like even for example, Barry Nash's point. Jeez, man, he threw that over the bar in his ease, and he put another one wide like this. And every one of them, their striking is absolutely impeccable. But yeah, Hegarty's striking is very, very good as well.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Aaron Gillane deserves a mention as 1-3 from play. A brilliant one from under the Hogan stand, where remember the way Tony Kelly took it on the hurl and killed it. Not as good as Tony Kelly, and it wasn't from as far away, but still beautiful as well. And then off his left hand, he took 2 in a row off that from the sideline, and not really looking. Like his back is to the goal, so he just kind of knows where the goal is and throws it up on the sideline. Like, I mean, geez, you could talk all day about the level of skill, because what's their best strength? Is it their skill? Is it their size? Is it their athleticism? Is it their system? Is it their manager? Is it their coach? Is it Caroline Coolidge? Like, it's a combination of they're the best team in Ireland at everything.
Yeah, it is. And that's the thing to recognise. We often in these situations, you try and find what's the one thing, what's the thing that we'll do to beat them. There's too many things to beat them. Well, not too many things to beat them. Too many things you have to beat them at if you want to beat them. And like you said, it's their physicality when it needs to be physicality, but it's their skill when it needs to be skill. It's their work rate. It's everything. They're just they have so much going for them that they don't have to rely on any one thing, and that applies to every player. Every player is physical. Even Cian Lynch, who would be seen as the smaller fella, he's not small. If you're standing beside him, he's a big physical man. Every single one of them are skillful. Every single one of them have a great attitude, great work rate. So until you start ticking all these boxes, you're at nothing. You have to compete with them. So if you're trying to scratch your head and figure out what one way to, there's no one way to beat these lads. You have to go in about 10 different areas, and even it seems to be off the pitch. Off the pitch, they seem to have a great attitude. One of the first things Cian Lynch mentioned yesterday after the match was just family and friends and keeping grounded and all these things, which is a great attitude to have. It didn't, I don't think anyone would begrudge him the feet coming off the ground this week, but they just seem to have so many areas covered. Everywhere is just accounted for. They've thought about everything. Look, there's no one way to beat these lads. They just have, they're the whole package at the moment. Yeah,
they definitely are. Last nomination is Declan Hannon, 2 points from play, just a commanding performance. Like, I mean,
that's Pierce's Declan Hannon.
Well, that was embarrassing now for Larry McCarthy. Like, I mean, Jesus, like, I have to say, I'm not a hurling man, so the minute I heard Napiershig, I went, well, that's not right. Adare didn't jump into my head, but I knew Napiershig is definitely wrong. And like, I mean, to hand him, and then he had to correct him in the first second of his speech and say, down in the Pier. But I don't think Larry McCarthy covered himself in glory. He started lecturing people about COVID. Just give him the bloody cup. Shut up. We're 18 months in now. Stop that. And the crowd all start murmuring. As in, they're all saying, oh, geez, what's he going on about here? Be very careful during club season. Like, come on, it's the All-Ireland final cup presentation, and then gets his club wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things I thought, which, look, again, we have to recognise COVID, and we're very lucky we had 40,000 people in the stadium yesterday, but I suppose it was fair for him to acknowledge it. But one thing I was thinking when he acknowledged COVID, I said, you're about to have 36 Limerick players shifting to Lee McCarthy in a minute now, kissing it and putting it up, and there's babies going to be put into it. So I was like, you're fighting a losing battle here now,
Yeah, no, it definitely was. And I don't know, Damien, what did you think? I don't want to be too hard on Larry McCarthy. Was that his first cup presentation? Maybe it was, but getting the captain's club wrong is a pretty...
Yeah, one thing's for sure, Hannon wanted to make certain that he wasn't an Pearson man anyway, so maybe there's a bit of rivalry between the two clubs. But it was just funny. The first thing he said was just to confirm, I'm not from the Pearson, But I know, look, he made a mistake. But I would agree with you. I'm sick of listening to COVID talk. So I agree with you there. I'm sick to my teeth. I'm up to my ears or so.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was Tony Houlihan might have wanted to give the cup presentation. I'd expected it from him.
Yeah,
Larry, you know your role there now, and just give him the cup.
And even something as well that we haven't even mentioned was, look, the accolade of Declan Hannon joining Christy Ring as being the second man to lift Lee McCarthy 3 times. That's a great achievement. It's great for something for Declan Hannon to be able to say as well. There's some accolades that they're, no more than we were talking a few weeks ago of Joe Canning becoming the top scorer in championship, or Patrick Horgan being the top scorer from play. For Christy, or not for Christy Ring, for Declan Hannon forevermore to be able to put himself in the same sentence as Christy Ring, and who's to say he won't surpass Christy Ring now over the next while.
He's odds on, yeah,
he's odds on. But just to be able to say, and no better man, the speech he made was a great speech, and he could have thanked. I thought something was great out of him as well, was he alluded to the backroom team of Limerick and said, I could be here all day talking, which he couldn't. He just said thanks to Ollie. Very humble speech, great speech. Also as well on the whole Piarsaigh thing, I'm sure there was a lot of people from Adare, and the Piarsaigh have enough to talk about down there, and Patrick's well and these lads, but I'm sure there was a lot of Adare people going, Declan Hannon's one of ours, we want him to be one of ours here, and don't be calling him the Piarsaigh. But for Declan Hannon, I think it's brilliant that he's able to say, look, Christy Ring lifted Lee McCarthy 3 times, I lifted Lee McCarthy 3 times. It's a brilliant thing to do.
Yeah, I thought his speech was very good as well, because I criticised his speech last year. I thought it was a bit corporate. It was like somebody else wrote it for him, and I don't know, it sounded like a kind of a corporate speech, but this year's seemed to be off the cuff. Just a final point on it, some people are referencing his performance in 2013 against Clare. I don't remember this, Damien. He didn't play well at all. He was on the freeze. He was a forward then, and he was a brilliant forward, but it can't be forgotten that John Kiley changed him into a centre back, and what a move that was.
Yeah, sure. We were just alluding to all their players, right? And what's going to stop Limerick? Everyone they're able to hurl. You take Nash. Nash is playing cornerback and he's playing up in the forwards there not so long ago as well. You take Dan Morrissey, wing back, now gone to full back. But as you said, Declan Hannon. When I was playing with Galway, we played Limerick one year. Declan Hannon was playing wing forward. So the next thing he went back to centre back, and he became their leader. So he did, and he seems to be the one that the management are so happy with regarding that. Maybe meetings and having a chat with the boys, and Kylie spoke fierce highly of him on television as well last night. But look, he had a super year this year, and it's like he orchestrates everything from centre back, and he scored points as well against Galway in the All Ireland final. So he did a couple of years ago, and he done it again yesterday. So he's still able to score points even from distance.
Yeah, exactly right. So performance of the weekend, there's no real secret, even though he wasn't marked the whole game. Keane Lynch, just for the contribution. We'll give him a pass about the judo as long as we don't ever see it again, Keane. Right? So I was going to give it to someone else on account of the judo move and take it off him, but I've calmed down on it, and I think for his performance, he definitely deserves performance of the weekend. So there you go. That's all we've time for today. We'll be back on Thursday. We'll do another show. We'll try and get one of the Limerick players on for an interview for this Thursday. So we'll talk to you all then. Good luck.